First of all, thanks everyone, and welcome to this Product Talk series by Pragmatic Leaders. We're glad to see you all here. Before we begin today's session, I would just like to introduce Nagendra with you all. As you all know, today's session is on Agile Product Management. We are going to do one-on-one interaction with Nagendra. And he has been working in product management and strategy consultant with over 15 plus years of experience. He has worked with large enterprises across India and across the globe. He has led global functional teams, designed and shipped multiple enterprises grade products across various geos. And he has also worked with Tesco for 12 years to land one of the largest digital transformation programs, impacting over 5,000 colleagues in around 13 countries. And he has been helping a lot of startups. He has been advising them, fast growing startups, on product frameworks, culture, strategy, and execution. With that note, I would like to hand over the session to you, Nagendra. It would be great to hear from you about your journey so far.
Sure thing, Piyush, and thank you for that. Like Piyush was saying, I've been with the product industry since about 15 odd years now, and most of my time of that 15 years is from Tesco. So I was introduced to product management via project management, and so like most people in the room, I mean, you probably would relate to this journey of mine where you didn't start your career as a product manager or an assistant product manager, associate product manager. I think that trend is slowly shifting now as we speak, because if I was talking to one of my previous teammates, he was in charge of placements, campus placements in IIT Kharagpur, and another person was in charge of campus placements in IMB. And the de facto role that people want to move into post their MBA or post whatever they're doing in these institutes is product management. It is good in a way because product management is getting its due. It's always been there. It's been there forever. It's just known in different names, be it a business analyst, be it a product manager, be it sometimes even project manager, be it program manager, various names for product management. But it's always been there in an avatar. I think it's just getting its due attention, and it's getting its day in the sun, so as to speak. Yeah, about me, 15 years, like I said, experience overall between project and product management. Big part of the time in Tesco, another stint with Edge Networks. It's a HR tech startup where I was a director of product management at Edge, led an awesome team of product managers and senior product managers there, including UI, UX. Yeah, I currently have taken a step back from a day-to-day job, and currently advising startups and having to start my own product management consulting service. And like just going back to what Piyush was saying, I'm currently advising startups on how to implement product management frameworks, strategies, the culture, more importantly. And that's a quick introduction to me.
Thanks. Thanks for the intro. So we have few questions pre-submitted from some of the folks from our community. Would you like to take them first, or would you like to take some questions from audience first?
Sure, I think we'll take the questions that we've already received. So just for the benefit of the people who've planned it in and submitted the questions, I think it's fair to get those answered first. But while we do that, I think we can take any questions as we speak today. I think it'll be good if you guys can put it on chat, and I can take it one by one. And if there are any spillovers, I'm in the Slack community. I will be on the Slack community and help you with those answers as well at a later point in time.
Okay. So I'll pick first question. First one is from Ritika. It's how to become a product manager and strategist, conventional and non-conventional ways.
Okay. So Ritika, you said. So I'm just checking if Ritika is in the room today.
I guess she is not here.
Yeah, no proxies. All right. So let me call that out in a more generic. The reason I wanted to ask that was what she mean by conventional and non-conventional. But how to be a product manager? It's a good place to start off, I guess. So like I was talking about, product manager, there are different names and different terminologies associated with the product manager. But the core aspect of being a product manager is being extremely involved and dwelling in the problem space. So I say this a lot, and I use it as a largest lens in my interviews that I've done. Just as a background, I've interviewed for product managers in India, in the UK, in Europe, most places. And there is a common thread that connects them all, which is product management is about understanding and dwelling in the problem space. That's the mindset that you need to be extremely clear about and extremely focused on. So solutioning, human beings are wired to solution quickly, or human beings are wired to solution, because that gives a sense of satisfaction when you've solved a problem. But the underlying fact to that is there needs to be a problem to solve. If you're solving the wrong problem, then yeah, it's not really too much of a good solution, is it? You might be solving it in the most beautiful way possible, but you'll be solving the wrong problem. So what's the point of that? So how to be a product manager first? I think the first and foremost, you need to have a mindset shift in thinking problems first. I think that if there's one takeaway from in this 1 odd hour of what we will talk about, is that you need to delve in the problem space. You would rather solve $1 billion problem haphazardly than $1 million problem beautifully. What's the point of solving $1 million problem? I mean, go for the big one, go for the $1 billion, and go wrong. And I think that's what we'll be talking about today. Agile. It's all right to go wrong. In fact, it is necessary to go wrong, because you need to find the ways how not to solve something. There are multiple ways to do the right thing. You'll have to figure out what is that one way that works best for you and works most efficiently for you. So that to me is how do you be a product manager, which is a bit philosophical, but the process of it is there are various ways to answer that question. Maybe I'll speak to Ritika later in the Slack community. But if you're starting off as a new person who's entering the sector or the discipline, as I call product management as, if you're entering this for new, then your best bet is to intern. And your best bet is to work in product companies which are solving problems and not necessarily solution/service oriented companies. I'm not demeaning anybody here. Services companies are trying to move into the product space as well, and that's working out for a lot of them, and they have their own business model, and things work, and everyone to themselves. But if you're in the product space, you need to dwell in the problem space, and you need to move on from that. So interning is one good way. And if you're already a product manager, or if you're a software engineer, or if you're a business analyst, or if you're a UI/UX designer, or anything, if you want to enter into a product management discipline, sorry, I also mentioned if you're a product manager, so let's just keep that aside. If you're in any other disciplines and you're trying to enter this discipline, the best bet for you is, I mean, of course, Pragmatic Leaders is one of the institutes that helps you get there, and that's always brilliant. Networking is a best bet for you to do that, and ensuring you grow within your own space. If there's a product division within your own space, then by all means, you should branch out, talk to the people within your team, and see if you can move from there. But I think I'll connect with Ritika separately and ask her what did she really mean and help her specifically with that question. But I hope that answers in a generic note.
Yes, thanks. Next one is from Nilesh. Does design of a feature start once the sprint starts, or it started before sprint?
All right. So this is a good question, right? For the reason that it opens up so many things about product management and agile product management in general. Before I answer the question, let me just open up something to this forum. And guys, please be interactive, or I can course correct only if you are helping me course correct. So by that I mean if you can talk back, that'll be brilliant. So let's just spend literally 2 to 3 minutes on what do you mean by agile product management or agile methodology. What does agile mean to you? Anybody wants to go first?
Agile is like opportunity to change based on the priority.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Brilliant,
gives
yeah.
Opportunity to fail fast, learn fast, and give priority to what market wants.
Yes, that's a good definition, a textbook definition. Good. Anybody else wants to go?
Agile is basically breaking down the task in small parts. Hello.
Yes. Sorry, I think Vikas was talking. I'm not sure. Sorry, who was talking? If you could continue, please. Mohammed will come back to you.
Nagendra, Nilesh here.
Nilesh, hi Nilesh. Yes, go on.
My understanding of Agile is breaking down the task in smaller parts and keeping and just rolling it out in the upcoming releases.
Okay, cool. Good. Mohammed?
Hi Nagendra, hi everyone. So my basic understanding of what Agile is basically like all the teams, all the stakeholders such as design, tech, and maybe business, they work coordinate like totally together on a project, and they might iterate again and again on each and everything that they are doing. So if there are any changes in the market or if there are changes in the design or technology while they are in the process, they can adapt to it like swiftly and then bring out the new product or the better product as such.
Sure. Great. Thanks for that, Mohammed. So let me just get some commonalities from what you guys said, right? And I think it's important and dare I say necessary for things to be simple. When in doubt, I always go back to the etymology of things, and by that I mean the roots of a word. What does Agile really mean? Agile really means agility. To me, Agile is not a methodology first. It is not a framework first. To me, Agile is a verb or an adjective. Why I say that is you could do all the things that you said and still be slow or still not be Agile. You could fail fast being relative. You could learn fast. You could all work together, the engineering team, the product team, the marketing team, the sales team, and still not be Agile. So I think you need to, it sounds like a no-brainer, right? It sounds like an obvious thing to say, and I don't mean to pick on you guys, but like I said at the beginning of the session, and for the benefit of the people who joined in a little later, product management and Agile product management at that is first a mindset shift. You need to be Agile as a person. You need to be Agile as a process. I've heard organizations say, I am Agile, I use Jira. Like, no, that's not Agile. Just because you use Jira doesn't mean you're Agile. I've seen organizations who use brown paper or sticky notes and Post-its and still are more Agile than people who spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on enterprise software. Agile means you need to be very quick. You need to give importance to pace. And I think Deepika was talking about failing fast. We'll talk about failing fast as well in a minute, because failing fast, and she succeeded failing fast with learning fast. I think they have to go hand in hand, because failing fast doesn't mean that use it as an excuse to invent 100 different ways of what didn't work. Failing fast can only go hand in hand when you have the processes built in to make course corrections very quickly. What that means is that there is a reason why Jeff Bezos calls Amazon is always on day one, right? What does day one mean? Day one means that the decisions that you take on the first day of a startup, the pace of decisions that you take on the first day of a startup, of your startup, let's put it that way, is day one. You need to be really quick in taking your decisions. And you have to put that in two different buckets: decisions that need time, that need deliberation rather, and decisions that do not need deliberation, and they wouldn't be any better even if you put in months of effort in it. The ones that need time, need deliberation, things such as what should be the architecture, what should be the tech stack that we use, that needs some deliberation. So that, yes, I wouldn't say take your time with it, put the due diligence to it. But the decisions that do not impact it, I've seen people spend hours and weeks and even months deciding on the color scheme, deciding on the palette, deciding on the text, what text and what font to be used. All those can be brought in later. Decide quick, move ahead. So I think the common thread was pace, agility. To be agile, I think Mohammed said this very well as well. That's the utopic state to be, right? Which is to be agile means you should be able to start the discovery process of finding a problem. You should be able to start writing specs. You should be able to start wireframing. You should be able to start coding. You should be able to start even testing all at the same time. sounds impossible. I mean, how can you test something when you're discovering what problem to solve? It is difficult, which is why most companies are not truly agile. The people who do that, again, going back to what Mohammed was saying, is when all of these individuals are in the same team, are within the same pod, as some of them call it. And that's the only way you will get to do all of these things together. And that's the only way you'll be able to be agile. So I just wanted to talk about this. Sounds like a preamble, and I didn't want to go on a rant, but I think it's extremely important for you to go back to the basics of what agile is. Yes, there is a manifesto. It says individuals and interactions over processes and tools. It says responding to change over following a plan, I think. Yeah, responding to change over following a plan. There is a manifesto. The manifesto follows with principles. It's all good, but try and go back to the basics of what agile is, and try and understand what agile's core tenet is. The core tenet of agile is agility. And that is the main thing which you need to be concentrating and focusing on. So going back to the question, sorry, Nilesh's question was, does the design of a feature start once a sprint begins, or does it start before a sprint? So the design of a feature, again, let me, at the risk of reiterating, don't think feature first, think of outcomes first. I'll come back to answering this question. The difference between an outcome and a feature is you have to go after what is the goal that you want to achieve, and you can achieve this goal by these many features. Don't think feature first, but then again, just to answer this question, because of you would have got that context, the design of a feature doesn't start with a particular sprint. In the technical terms of what a typical sprint is engineering heavy, which means the technical team get involved and they start working on something, they start coding, they start doing things. That is a typical definition of what a sprint is. There are other definitions, and people follow this as well. There are discovery sprints, there are architectural sprints, and there are design sprints as well. The design of a feature starts before the technical build of a sprint, for sure. Because what is the feature? Feature is the end goal, right? You're going to build a particular feature. But there are so many things that happen before you came to identifying that this feature needs to be built. I mean, hopefully so. You don't just start building features, right? You go back to a typical backlog, but a backlog just doesn't get built. A backlog gets built by conversations with the customers, with the users, with your sales team, with your customer success management team, even with your engineering team. The backlog gets built with all these conversations, and it then gets into that backlog, which then is prioritized and then effort estimated and then plugged into a particular sprint. So hell yes, the design of a feature starts before a sprint starts itself. Again, when I say design, I just don't mean the UI UX design of it. I mean design in its true sense, which is the discovery of it. You need to validate whether you need to do this problem, you want to go after this problem first, and you need to validate whether this feature will work first, because you need to prototype that particular feature. And then only once you've validated these, you can move into building that particular feature. Of course, you can do all this in record time. So as an example, in my previous organization, we built 3 enterprise-grade products, each of them the size of a business or size of an organization, in about 4 months' time. So that was the pace at which we did. And yes, we did have 16-hour days. Yes, it did cause some burnouts, but yes, it is possible. So the design of a feature does start before the sprint begins. Hope that answers your question, Nilesh.
Yes, Nagendra. Thank you.
Any follow-up questions, or should we move on to the next, Piyush?
Yes, we can move on to the next. Next one is from Sinchit. He says the role of agile in data science field.
Okay. So that's a good one. Let me talk about my experience, right? Edge Networks, my previous startup, it was an extremely data science heavy organization. So the goal for Edge Networks was simplifying talent decisions using AI. So we had a really big data science team, rivaling even the engineering team in some cases. By AI or data science, by definition, it is believed that it takes time to build up the knowledge that you need for the algorithms to work with sufficient enough accuracy for you to ship a particular feature. And some of the numbers that I was told is it takes 3 months, it takes 6 months for us to do anything, which could include just parse this particular text for me. I need you to parse, add an additional parsing element. We used to parse resumes. So it used to already parse first names and last names with a fairly good amount of accuracy. I wanted to bring in a feature where it can parse patents as well. I wanted to bring in a feature which can parse certifications as well. And 3-month, 6-month journey. So can you be agile in a data science team? Yes. The answer to that, the reason why it's yes, is you need to identify your milestones of what outcome you want to achieve. In that example, the outcome that I wanted to achieve was the ability to extract a certification out of a resume, and the ability for the algorithms to know that this particular phrase, a CSPO and a certified Scrum product owner and a Scrum product owner all mean the same thing. That was my final outcome. And for you to achieve that final outcome, break it down to multiple things. You might want to start with just CSPO first. You might want to start with whatever you want to choose. Break it down and start running experiments. Agile, I'm going back to, I think, what Deepika was telling about failing fast. What that really means is you run experiments, and the definition of an experiment is it either be validated or it'll be falsified. Only two, it's binary. It can either be yes or a no. So run your experiments in data science. You have your own algorithms that you want to do. You have your own outcomes to do. But it's important for you to come to a conclusion of what is the outcome that you want to achieve, and then move ahead to be agile. Again, I go back to what the core tenet of agile is, and that is agility. So if you're able to be quick about the decision making, if you're able to run your experimentations, then yes, you can be agile in data science. And we were agile, and we still are agile. Edge, I mean, still agile with the way we work. Cool. If there are no follow-up questions to that, then we can move on to the next question.
Yes.
So thank you from Senshutsu.
Next one is from Vedanta. How to learn and practice agile methodologies when my current work does not use agile?
Okay, I was looking forward to answering this question. When you say that your current organization doesn't practice agile, I find that hard to believe. I'll tell you why. And it goes back to the definition of what you mean by agile, right? Like I said, some of them have told me that I use Jira, so I'm agile. So if the definition of agile is you are considered to be agile only if you use Jira or an Asana or a product plan or whatever the tools are out there, then that is wrong. No organization will want to go slow. Everybody by definition will want to go fast. So there isn't an organization who would deliberately want to go slow unless it's for a strategic reason. But just to answer the question, because I want to stay with the flow, how to be agile when the organization is not agile? How I'm reading this question as is the organization is not conducive. The environment is not conducive to be agile. What that means is it's not an environment that's conducive to run experiments. It's not an environment that is conducive to fail. You want to get right in the first go, which typically for me is an organization that builds solutions, not an organization that builds products. There's a huge difference. Solutions can be built when you have a set of requirements to follow. Products, on the other hand, is built when, yes, you have requirements to follow, but that's based on empirical data, that's based on heuristics, and that's based on hunches even. You want to run some experiments. This is something that the market is reacting to. And this is something that my competitor is doing, which is why I want to do this feature. So there's a huge difference between building solutions and building products. So when you say the organization is not agile, I'm guessing that the organization builds solutions. And by definition of solution, there is a process to follow. You need to collect requirements first from your client. You need to put it in a BRD template or a document. You need to get a sign off from a particular client to do that, and then you need to start the work. That is a typical waterfall model. So if that is the case, then yeah, there are ways to change that. I think one more question was about how to be agile in services industry, and that's a different topic altogether. But within a product organization, if you want to be agile when a product organization is not agile, the way for you to do that is, again, go back to making your decisions quick. Try and start running experimentations because you want to be validating something. Because being agile means, end of the day, shipping something as quickly as you can and seeing if that is something that solves the problem and how users are reacting to it. and then learning from it, and then iterating and shipping again. So that is the process we'll have to build in. I hope that answers your question. I know I didn't completely answer it because I think it's a longer conversation. I would invite, I think, Vedanta, you mentioned, for us to connect again over Slack, and I'll be happy to take you through it again.
Yeah, thank you.
Vedanta.
Yeah.
Yes. Did you have a follow-up question to that, Vedanta, because you are in the room?
I want to be more of how do I practice it, because if I try to move into a PM role, well, my current job role is not PM, and I work for a media agency. So here, as you said, we are more involved with the client, not more involved with the solution, not with the product. So,
Sure.
So my
Sure.
so it will be like how should I learn in a client service based environment? This as
Okay. Okay, perfect. So, Vedanta, let me just add a few more points to you, because I guess it's a solutions environment, because that has certain processes. There's a rigmarole of sorts where you need to do this before you move to do this, and there's a lot of red tape, there's a lot of approvals to be done. You shouldn't implement agile framework for the heck of it, right? Being agile is good. Implementing agile frameworks is good, but agile is best placed for environments that is, like I said, conducive to speed, and environments that have a level of uncertainty that needs flexibility and adapting. Agile is best suited for such environments. Agile is not the answer to all the problems. Because of the culture change Agile brings in, it's very difficult, right? Tesco, where I was there, and Tesco is a 500,000 employee organization. And Tesco, for the people who don't know, is the world's third largest retailer, UK's largest retailer, and all that. It's a massive enterprise. Tesco is on an Agile journey for the last 8 years. It takes time because it's a complete cultural shift. So you shouldn't first implement Agile frameworks for the heck of it. But that said, you should individually try and be more agile, try and imbibe the agile principles, which is you should, even within your own environments, Vedanta, you should look at how can you get better at validating the requirements that you get from your from your clients. How can you show the end result even before the end result? What I mean by that is when a client gives you a requirement that something like this needs to be built, is there a way for you to prototype it? That is a way for you to be agile, and you can have a meeting conversation with your client and say, this is how the end goal will look like. Are you okay with this? When they see something visually, then that gives you enough for you to course correct, and that gives you enough to receive feedback from your client as to how the end goal or end product will look like or end feature will look like, and then you can make your corrections. But yeah, let me add on that one of the largest and greatest impediments to organization being agile is their inflexibility or organization structure, right? Which is the genesis of an organization structure is very traditional, multi-layered decision approval mechanisms. So the more decision makers there are, it's harder for an organization to be agile. So that is there, but I've always seen that if you're able to showcase something, give a glimpse of what it could look like. And I've done this, I've had conversations with CHROs of organizations which are over $15 billion in revenue. And the conversation was, I drew it on a piece of paper and showed it to them, telling this is how it will look. Are you okay with it? And they've said, yes, this is what we're looking for. And they give me feedback, and we've just made some changes immediately. That is agile. You don't need an InVision. You don't need a sketch. You don't need any of those tools for you to wireframe. You just need a pen and paper, a pencil as I prefer. All right.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Can I ask one more follow-up question based on data science, the previous answer? Yeah. So don't you think data science is a more of a research kind of, where we should not directly try to put agile, as you said?
I agree. Data science is research oriented, and it takes time. So one of the biggest failures, my personal failures at Tesco, was we tried to implement agile ways of working in a payroll organization. I mean, what is the MVP for a payroll organization, right? Or payroll software? MVP cannot be that in the first release, we will pay people 60% right. I mean, what does that mean? I can't pay somebody 60% accurately. I need to pay someone 100% accurate on day one. So there isn't an MVP in payroll. There are ways to do it, but let me not, I'll be digressing, I'll be moving away from it. Data science is, yes, research oriented, but you need to stop somewhere. You will never ever achieve 100%, let alone a 90% accuracy in data science. It just can't. I mean, algorithms aren't at a place where it can achieve consistently 90% accuracy in a lot of things. The other day, LinkedIn suggested that I apply for a head of sales role. Like LinkedIn and asking me to apply for a head of sales role where nothing in my profile talks about sales. And I just didn't get it. So algorithms go wrong. But like I was talking about earlier, you need, being agile doesn't mean only shipping things very quickly. That is the final outcome. Yes, you want to ship something, but what is the definition of shipping something? Definition of shipping something can also be that I've learned this. That is still okay. For you to be agile means you have an end goal in mind, or the end goal of release 1 in mind, and then you work it backwards from there. In the example I was taking, I want to get certifications. I'm working it backwards from there. And for me to work it backwards, it takes me 6 months to do this. But by the end of month 1, or by end of week 1 even, this is what I want to achieve. Have I achieved it? Can I demonstrate it? Yes, you probably can. And that's what I worked with my head of data science. And we were working on a way where the system can write sentences on its own to create a job description on its own. So we sat down with each other. Every week there was a demonstration, and there is a way to be agile in that space as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. If I have some more question, I'll connect. Can I connect you over Slack?
Of course.
Thank you.
So like you said that your team was giving you demonstration every week for the text generation problem that you just discussed. So were they giving demonstration on like different model every week, or the same model were different pre-processing?
Okay. The demonstration, the first week's demonstration was a meeting and a whiteboard conversation. It was that. So this is where I want you guys to step back from what there is a bit of unlearning, right? Any small increment towards the final goal is agile. So if somebody is able to drop something and that convinces me that we are in the right direction. I'm the customer in this particular case for my head of data science, and that convinced me. And yes, this is the right direction for us to go to. So that is agile, and that is good enough, because there are environments where you need time, and you obviously need data as well. We had a big problem with data. How do we get the volumes of data that we need? And of course, there are models which are fairly accurate with less amount of data. So there are various models to do it in today's world. But demonstration can be on a whiteboard. Demonstrations can be a code. The third week demonstration for me was the code, a Python script. I don't understand it, but he was able to talk to me and tell, this is what we spoke about in the end of week 1, and this is how we're going to do this. Are you okay with this thing? And it turns out that I was not okay with it, because we were talking about certain things and he understood the synonyms aspect of it incorrectly. I wanted it grouped, and then I gave him feedback then and there, and he was able to course correct. And then we made changes in the algorithms, and the week 4 demonstration was much more content, and we got it built in, I think, 6 weeks time. So yeah, so demonstration can be in various forms. It doesn't need to be a UI piece of application. Something needs to be built.
Okay, thank you.
Right, got 20 about minutes to go. Pish, any other questions before I open it up for?
We have few more questions. One is from Mohammed Hussain. I think we have already covered it. When to decide if we should go for waterfall or agile model? Sorry,
what was the first word? When to decide?
When to decide whether we should go for agile or waterfall model.
Okay, so like I said, for you to implement agile, I think there's an article by McKinsey, which I'll probably share in the Slack community later, which talks at length about deploying agile in an enterprise world. And it's a very generic document. You can use it for your own benefit as well. It works in a smaller setup too, but I'll share that article later. But I think there is an environment that needs to be conducive to agile. Sorry, I'm sounding like a parrot now, but it's extremely important. Being agile is a mindset shift. It's a culture shift. And if the organization is not for it, then it's going to be hard. And that's what I felt in Tesco as well. Tesco was a behemoth. It was, yes, it makes the revenue in $100 billion plus, but it's a massive organization, and making changes is going to be very difficult. And that's why the job of a product manager is everything. You are a change agent, you are a business analyst, you are sometimes a developer, you are everything. And that makes the product management role a bit more difficult, and that's where the challenge is, right? But when do you decide to do waterfall or agile? It really depends on the environment, and it depends on the outcome. I wouldn't say that you can be agile in a payroll environment, or you can be agile in an environment which is building a health monitoring apparatus. You can't be. You shouldn't rather be agile there. There are ways to be. There are ways to demonstrate things quickly. But like, for example, a COVID vaccine is a great example, right? So even though there was ways for people to push something quickly, they did not do it. But then again, as far as vaccines go, it got pushed extremely quickly. The typical time it takes for a vaccine to go out is 10 years to 12 years, I hear. And one of my conversations with an external researcher, he was telling it takes about 12 years to ship a vaccine. But we shipped something, the world shipped something in 1 year time. So they were agile about it. There are ways to do this if push comes to shove. But when do you decide to do waterfall or agile? Depends on the environment. As long as the environment is conducive to run experiments, the environment is conducive for teams to work in collaboration, then yeah, go ahead with it.
Thanks, Nagendra. That answers my questions. Yeah.
Sure.
So we have few more questions, but I think we can open up for the audience now.
Sure.
I have one question. Since I'm a Scrum Master and I always work with the product owner with prioritization, like how things get prioritized, and there are a lot of stakeholders as well who work with the product owner. So, what is your experience when you start as product manager and you get a lot of features requests from the stakeholder? And how do you manage it? Like how do you prioritize it? What is the first preference comes in your mind?
Okay, this is brilliant, right? Because you're hitting it where it's the most difficult thing. The one thing that a product manager, I use that word manager, not an owner. There's a difference between product manager and product owner. We'll not get into it today, but we can talk about it later. But one of the biggest job of a product manager and the defining factor of a product manager is how well he or she prioritizes. And the basis of that makes or breaks something. How I typically prioritize is I go back, I call it as a problem backlog. You've all heard about backlogs, which talks about features that needs to be built and all that. But for me, I have this hypothesis that it's more important to solve the right problem than solving the problem right. So how do you solve the right problem first? You put a backlog of what are the problems you want to solve, not the solution of it. Put a backlog of what do you want to solve. And then it's when you start talking to your users and customers and your sales team and your CSM team, they will only talk solutions. They'll only say, I want this button. Can you give me a download feature? Can you give me a report? Can you give me this metric? They'll only talk solutions because they're wired. It's not an issue with their thinking. Their thinking is what impacts them here and now, and they are right in that. But it's a product manager's job to sift through all that noise and then draw the connection between a feature being asked and the problem that you want to solve. So once you make that connect, it's much easy for you to prioritize. So how I normally prioritize is I create a bunch of problems and then I quantify and I qualify the problems. By that I mean I try and see if I can get a quantifiable value to that particular problem. If I solve this problem, then I'll be potentially bringing in, let's say, $100,000 in savings, or I'll be shaving off about half the time that somebody spends on it. Then that gives me an inkling of, okay, this is the weightage to this particular problem. And not all problems need to be quantified. It is a great way. If you're able to quantify it, then do quantify. But if you're not, then qualify them. What are the things? There's this thing, actually, I got gifted an Alexa Echo. I would have never bought it myself, but I got gifted an Echo by my previous teammates. And Alexa is a feature. If you guys have an Echo, you might know this. When you talk to Alexa, when you whisper to Alexa, it whispers back in return. When you talk to Alexa in a normal tone, then it talks back to your normal tone. What is the quantifiable value proposition of it? It's just not there. But ask a parent of a 1-year-old, they will stand up and applaud for that feature, which is what I did, because I'm a parent of a 1.5-year-old. It's those small things, right? How do you prioritize that feature over adding integration to additionally in the example of Echo, they have these 30,000 skills, right, which gets connected to a lot of things. How do you prioritize that whispering feature, talk back in a whisper fashion, with integration? Integration can bring in additional revenue, but Alexa talking back as a whisper, in fact, sorry, my Alexa just powered on. Let me just put her on mute. Yeah. So it talking back to you is a value proposition that should be prioritized, because you go back to the end customer that you're trying to address a problem for, and then you see what pain point will be solved for that particular customer. And not everything can be quantified. Qualifying value propositions are equally important. And then, of course, there is a sales team, there is a CSM team, there is the engineering team, there is a code refactor. All these things need to be put together, and then you need to prioritize. But go back to the quantifiable and the qualifiable thing, and make sure that the feature that you want to build, that you want to prioritize, tags back to the problem that will take you one step closer to the product vision.
Okay, yeah, that answers my question as well. And just one quick, I'm curious to know, like, what like a costlier mistake being a product manager you have done, and if you would like to share something, like, and how you worked on it, like, to make it, nullify it.
Okay. I think the costliest mistake that I personally did was we started working on features due to various pressures and various external influences. I started working on features without tying it back to the problem that I was trying to solve. And what that led me to do was waste over 8 months in developing a piece of code or a piece of software, which is not something that we can sell to a market, which can only sell to a particular environment or a particular organization. So what I did was I built a solution. I did not build a product. So 8 months in a startup is generations, is eons. So I would say that is my costliest mistake. How did I nullify it? Well, we changed, we worked with the client, and we made them understand why building a solution is not the right step to this. Building a product is the better step. And it took about 3 conversations, and the client was convinced that this is the right way to go. And they completely forgoed all that was done, and they came back to us and they said, let's do it your way. Tough conversations, 8 months of sleepless nights, all went in one shot. But yeah, learnings. All right. Any more questions? If not, I'd like to take the last 5 minutes talking about a few notes that I made from the questions that I saw, but we still have 10 minutes to go. So any questions from anyone? All right, Piyush, do you want to pick any question, or shall I just go through something that I wanted to talk about?
We have few questions, but I think we can go ahead and go ahead with what you have to discuss. All
right, cool. One of the questions in the group itself was, how do you adapt Agile as a team grows from 10 to 100, right? I think it's important. And there was another question, if I remember this right, it was about, do you implement Agile at the beginning, or can you implement Agile later? So I'll take those two. Implementing Agile in the beginning is always better. And this is obviously applicable for businesses that are being set up. So I believe there are some co-founders or founders and CEOs who want to start a business in this forum. So if you are starting a business, it's good to start at Agile. There's just no other way to do it. I mean, if you're not Agile about it, then you're out of the game. But continuing on is extremely important, right? And how do you continue being Agile? The biggest differentiator is hiring the right people. Sounds easy, but I mean, it's not easy to hire the right people. It took me 6 months to hire a product manager, and I still couldn't hire a product manager. But it is extremely important to hire people with the right mindset, and the mindset you want to be looking for is someone who's problem oriented. A person who's solution oriented, it's difficult for that person to be a product manager. Because there is a product manager is consistently bombarded with priorities. It's like choosing between two children. Sorry, I'm a parent, so all my analogies and examples comes as children, but it's like choosing between two children, right? Do you want this child or that child? I mean, you can't. There's just no way, but you have to. That's the job. That's the job of a product manager. You have to prioritize between seemingly equal things. And it's an art. It's not easy. How you prioritize is with conversations with your sales team, with your CSM team, with all those teams. And one more thing that I think you guys should know early on is a product manager. For a long time, I thought I, as a product manager, need to have all the answers. I couldn't be more wrong, right? I, as a product manager, cannot have all the answers. But I, as a product manager, should be seeking the right answers from the right people. So what that means is I need to be asking the questions. You need to ask more questions and help the organization arrive at an answer. Disconnect with the emotion of I have solved this problem. No, disconnect with that emotion. It's easy to get some brownie points or feel good that you've solved it. Start feeling good that you identified the problem. How it gets solved is immaterial. The how, actually, engineering team owns the how it gets solved. You have a say, but you need to empower and let the engineering team, give them enough autonomy to solve it the way they want to solve it, the most efficient way they want to solve it. Start being emotionally connected to the problem space, not the solution space, because there are many ways to do the right thing. Otherwise, you wouldn't have an Uber and a Ola. You wouldn't have an Apple and a Microsoft and a Google. You wouldn't have all these organizations, each billions of dollars of revenue, right? You wouldn't have it because each of them solve it in a way that is right. Some people might agree to it, some people might not agree to it, but it is right for what it is. So you start feeling good that you've identified the right problem to solve. How it's solved, be emotionally disconnected. Be focused. That's extremely important for you to be focused and have a vision to rally the team around. One of my early learnings was, unless you have a statement, a very simple, very easy to understand statement, which tells what is it that you're trying to do. And it can't be very generic as well, right? Like what I think Disney's vision statement is to make people happy. Like, yeah, there are hundreds of ways to make people happy, but that's okay for it to be a company vision, not a product vision. So be simple and have a very crucial vision or a value proposition statement. You should read up Jeffrey Moore's value proposition template. He's the author of this really good book called Crossing the Chasm. So you need to be very crisp, very simple about what is it that you want your product to do, so that everybody can relate to it. When I say everybody, in a product organization, the CEO, the engineering team, the sales team, the CSM team, even the housekeeping team. Trust me, I'm not joking. The tea vendor, the samosa vendor, he understood about the products that we were building, because it just so happens that we are talking about most of the things while eating samosas. And this guy was extremely inquisitive about what is it that we are talking about. So he knew. So it is extremely important for all of these entities to be aligned. And the way to align them is by having one statement that brings them all together. So be focused, have a vision that organization can rally towards. To be agile, it is extremely important to be small. For you to be focused, you need to be small. It's very difficult to be focused when you have hundreds and hundreds of people, which is what I'll come back to the end of this, where I'll give you a few articles for you to read, very interesting articles. So create small teams. I think it was Spotify, right, who had this methodology of pods and chapters and all that. So create small teams, autonomous team, empower them. It is not that you create these teams and make those teams report to someone and micromanage. That's not the intent. Empower them. Autonomy is key. And having outcomes, not outputs, that's crucial. Everybody needs to know what is the outcome that they're going after. not the output. The output should not be that, I am going to create specs for these things by end of this week. That's an output. Try and get the outcome. I will increase revenue by this number. I will increase adoption by this number. That's an outcome. Final thing that I'll tell you guys is, I can probably put this in Slack as well. There are two companies. I'm not sure how many of you are in my generation. I'm not that old, but still I feel old. I'm not sure how many of you know the game Half-Life. Just call out if anybody here knows Half-Life, the game. I'm guessing not. Half-Life is one of my most favorite games. I really like playing that. I bought my Xbox to play that game. It's by Valve Software. Half-Life was a game that Valve built, I think, way back in 2000, where they built this game, and I think 2 months before they were due to release the game, they called it off. They were not funded. It was all their money. They called it off because they didn't think the game was fun enough. That was the only reason why they called it off. They put more time, I think 6 or 8 more months in it, in their own money, and then they released the game, went on to be one of the best games ever. So this is the first Half-Life, and then it's moved on to different versions of Half-Life. But what I want to bring you back to is Valve Software. They implement something called as a Cabal system, CABAL. What it basically stands for is, Cabal is a community, a secret community of people who talk about things, right? But you really need to read about Valve Software, how Valve built Half-Life. It's an article that dates back to, I think, 96, and brilliant article. It talks to you about what Agile really is. And more recently, I'm again talking the game world, you should read about Supercell. And you probably will know Supercell because of the games that they build, which includes Clash of Clans and everything else. So you also need to read about how they build software, in this case, games. Supercell, the reason it's called Supercell is they have cells of people, which are small pockets of groups, which run their own things. So each group is a company. Each group decides their own things. They have their own budgets, they have their own everything. So read about these two articles. I'll post this on LinkedIn, on Slack as well. And that'll hopefully help you better understand what Agile is about. There's a reason I took these two examples that span decades. One is late 90s and other is as recent as now, right? The reason I've taken these two examples is Agile Manifesto is, yes, the textbook definition of what it is meant to be Agile. There is this company, Valve Software, which released Half-Life before or during the time of Agile Manifesto. And then there is this company, which is Supercell, which is released much after that. And both are talking about the same thing in its principle. And the principle of Agile, the core tenet of Agile, is agility, is pace, is velocity. So just keep that, and that's it. 1 minute to go, so any questions I can pick. Or we can connect on Slack anyway.
Okay, I don't think we have any other questions, so we can wind up the session here.
Sure. I just see Neha Chauhan who joined, and she was my ex-teammate at Edge. And the reason she joined in was she's still working, I suppose. So hi, Neha. But we are wrapping up. We are wrapping up, Neha.
Yeah, I just heard we are wrapping up. Yeah, joined on the right time.
Yes. All right, but more than happy to connect with you guys on Slack. And hopefully this was helpful. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me, LinkedIn, Slack, reach out to me.
It was good. Yeah. Helpful. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Nagendra. So guys,
everyone.
If you have missed out some part of the session, we'll be publishing a video of this session on our YouTube channel. And if any one of you is not part of our Slack community, I've shared link in chat section. You can join them and connect with Nagendra. Yeah, that's all. Thanks a lot, Nagendra, once again.
Thanks, Piyush. Thanks, guys. Bye.